Welcome back to the Winter Growers Podcast. My guests today are Tim Wilcox and Caroline Pam of the Kitchen Garden in Sunderland, Massachusetts. Tim and Caroline started their business as a 1-acre market garden in 2006, and now 16 years later, they've expanded to 70 acres, employ 20 employees year-round, and sell 50% wholesale vegetables and 50% value-added products after building a large on-site commercial kitchen facility. They also own and operate Sunderland Farm Collaborative, an online platform providing custom order and home delivery of local food from 50 producers from the surrounding community. Growing in 4 30 by 200-foot high tunnels, their primary fresh winter crops include carrots, radish, turnips, arugula, spicy mix, and forced raddichio. They've become known for their locally made and high-quality value-added products such as sriracha sauce, salsa, dried and smoked chili products, and dried herbs. With such quick growth and a diversity of products, they provided the advantages of stable employment and year-round income for their business, coupled with the added challenges of infrastructure growth and management, plus stress and burnout. Tim and Caroline are incredibly talented and motivated farmers, and our conversation offers an interesting perspective on what it takes to expand a year-round farm business and the unexpected personal costs in that constant search as farmers to find work-life balance with financial stability. This episode is brought to you by Rimmel Greenhouses.
Whether it's tomatoes to market, flowers in the spring, or your family's harvest, growing in a greenhouse protected from the weather provides the right environment that you need for a harvest that you can count on. Rimmel Greenhouses are designed for durability and offer the quality that you need to grow productively year-round. Visit rimmelgreenhouses.com to get a quote today.
Here at Four Season Farm, we use Rimmel greenhouse models to support our year-round crop production. Today's show is also brought to you by Johnny's Selected Seeds. Johnny's Selected Seeds is a proud sponsor of the Winter Growers Podcast. Since 1973, Johnny's has supported farmers and gardeners with superior seeds, tools, and information to help ensure their growing success and feed their communities and families. The research farm is the heart of Johnny's, where they trial thousands of varieties and tools every year. Their breeding program uniquely focuses on introducing varieties that meet the needs or solve challenges that mixed market, small farmers, and avid gardeners face. Visit johnnyseeds.com for innovative new varieties and time-tested favorites to grow this season. You can also browse the online Growers Library for a wealth of educational resources, including the Johnny's Winter Growing Guide, which features tips on planting and harvesting into the shortest days of the year. The employee owners at Johnny's look forward to growing with you. Now, back to the show. Okay, so welcome to Tim Wilcox and Caroline Pam of the Kitchen Garden in Massachusetts. Thank you for being here.
It's great to be on.
Yeah, we're excited to talk with you, Clara.
Well, I'm really excited to speak with you today because I know both of you have been doing this for quite a long time, over 15 years now. And when you started, you were just a 1-acre market garden. And now you're farming over 70 acres and you have an enormous business. And it's just interesting to see how you've evolved over the years and how, winter growing or a component of that has sort of maintained this thread through your farming career, and how you feel that has been important to your business, how that's been challenging to your business. So many questions. To start, I would love to hear more about your farming story, how you got started, where you grew up, how you met, all those fun details.
I guess, we're farming in the Pioneer Valley of Massachusetts, right along the Connecticut River. And we settled here because I went to Hampshire College between 2001 and 2005. Neither one of us are from a farming upbringing. I got into farming because I really was learning a lot about food and cooking and really passionate about that, and got into gardening and agriculture sort of by being exposed to it at Hampshire College, and just really quickly, determined that this is something that I really wanted to do full time after graduating. I'm from upstate New York originally. Caroline's from the city, and she can talk more about that.
Yeah, farming was not at all on my radar, even all the way through college. I grew up originally in Queens and then moved to Long Island through high school and went to school in Chicago and studied English and worked in New York City as a journalist immediately upon graduating. But during the years that I was working at a newspaper, I became obsessed with cooking and cookbooks and just fell into that as a more primary interest, as a way of connecting with people and just finding more meaning in my life. So I had one of those 9/11 wake-up moments and enrolled in culinary school, deciding to do with my time in a more serious way things that I was interested in. And so after culinary school, I never really meant to work in a kitchen. I, have worked in a couple of kitchens, but more at that time thought maybe I'd go into food writing. But ultimately, post-graduation, worked at a cookbook store, Kitchen Arts and Letters, amazing for anybody who cares about food at all. You've got to go. And worked at the Green Market, doing cooking demos and as a market manager. And that is where I encountered Tim.
Yeah, so after enrolling in Hampshire College, I took a summer job in 2002, as a market manager at Union Square Green Market in New York City. And I spent the time that I had there talking to farmers, just sort of pestering them about their business and about vegetables. And I can remember being completely flatly discouraged by every single one of them not to get into farming. And, being a young whippersnapper, I just ignored everything and,
Isn't it funny how that happens?
Well, you have to be idealistic to get into this and somewhat naive, because if you know what's coming later, it's not a very good advertisement. In any case, so I did that summer. It was very meaningful to me in terms of just kind of seeing what people had and were doing at the market, and sort of the whole culture around the community and chefs, and the amount of publicity that was, being placed on, this was a very exciting time. It was before food was really mainstream. This was the time that it was becoming more of a trendy, hot thing for, say, the New York Times to write about. And the farmers market was a very exciting place at that time. Okay, so long story short, I went to Italy that fall. I came back and I met Caroline because she had taken my job when I left. And she was also planning to go to Italy. So our mutual friends were you guys should meet each other. And I ended up working on a farm that sold at the Green Market the following season when Caroline was a manager there. So we, got to hang out. And then she went to Italy to go to Spinocchia, which is a sort of
a Tuscan villa.
Yeah, it's a common, you can go there and learn to farm if you're an American. So a lot of people sort of know what Spinocchia is. And
that was my very first experience, touching a vegetable growing in the ground. Never before had I encountered anything like it. And so I just spent 3 months over the summer, working in the garden, the vegetable garden, working in the sala di trasformazione, making tomato preserves, and soaking it all up. And Tim and I, meanwhile, were I guess it was via email, early days of email, corresponding about our opposite but similarly difficult farming seasons, because we were experiencing an epic drought and heat wave in Italy that summer. Meanwhile, Tim in New Paltz at the farm that he was managing was experiencing terrible rain and losses. So we sort of commiserated and shared those experiences remotely on our separate farm.
Now, Tim, did you go to Spinocchio as well, or was it just Caroline?
No, I went the previous fall and did some woofing in Tuscany, Abruzzo, and Umbria for like an entire semester. I took off from college.
That's great. Yeah, Spinocchio. I have actually been to Spinocchio, and it's a really lovely place. So I love listening to you describe it, Caroline, because I have fond memories of just spending a week there. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. It's, it wasn't like a real farming nitty gritty experience per se, but it was kind of like summer camp. For me, as a 27-year-old at that time, having worked and, had experiences and then going there, a lot of the other interns, because it's an actual intern program, where you can specialize in different areas of the farm. You can work in the forest, you can work in the, depending on the season, in olive oil, in the vineyards, in any case. But it was a really meaningful moment for me to sort of try something absolutely foreign and determine like, wow, I'm a city girl, but I actually really enjoy this. I like getting up early. I like working really hard with my body. And, I guess I want to do more.
That's great. Yeah. And I love how both of you have these, this Italian influence in both your, culinary interests and in your farming. So that's really interesting to me too.
Yeah. So, when we started the farm together, part of our goal was to create our own private Italy. We wanted to grow things that, you couldn't find, raddichio, fennel, like all these herbs, and just like have it was, at least partially at the beginning, a lifestyle thing where, this is what we were passionate about because we had been exposed to it and we wanted to recreate it and share it with other people.
Yeah, and I had also spent a year during college living in Paris, and that was where I sort of encountered farmers markets for the first time and just fell in love with the beautiful produce, and just like the inspiration to cook came from that. Like they started with the vegetables first. So, it's Italian in that both of us specifically worked on farms in Italy, and Tim has spent a lot more time in Italy after that initial woofing experience, as we'll get into researching raddichio. But, it was also just sort of a European slant on like appreciation in the culture for vegetables and beautiful and market lifestyle.
Yeah. So you started this 1 acre market garden in 2006. How did that happen? What was the initial dream and vision?
Well, we were at that time both living in Hadley, so right near Amherst, Northampton, and Hadley is a historic farming community in the center of the Pioneer Valley, and my dream was, I had really fallen in love with the landscape and just how great the land is, and how there's this like pretty robust agricultural, like there's huge conventional farms, there's organic farms. It's just a very it's a great place for ag, and it's also a great place to live. So we had sort of decided we wanted to be here. My dream was to like own one of these colonial farm properties in the center of town, but it didn't end up really happening. But the first year we found a piece of land that was overgrown. I just went to the town hall, figured out who owned it, and called them up. So the deal was that we would like rake their leaves and they'd like let us play around on the land. So
At
we
that
got
time.
into a farmer's market, and we started selling to restaurants, and like we really didn't know what we were doing at all. But we took it from there.
I should note that I skipped over a little bit more of my farming background before we got to the point of just starting the farm the minute Tim graduated, because I was already in Hadley because I was apprenticing. I did a full season apprenticeship at Food Bank Farm, which was one of the early CSA farms that was started in the 90s, and got a really serious production farm experience. And prior to that, I had been the public program manager at Stone Barns when it first opened. And that's actually where I met your dad the first time, Clara.
I was in the consulting phase.
Yeah, so that was sort of like I had been on a farm in Italy. I had landed the job at Stone Barns, which seemed like the dream because it utilized my writing and, other skills and my knowledge of farming, my small knowledge of farming at that time, and my food knowledge from working in the cookbook store and working in kitchens. But I learned very quickly from that experience that I just didn't want to just talk about farming and, engage with the public about it in a general theoretical way. I wanted to actually go do it. And so that's when I went to Hadley to work at Food Bank Farm and, became ready to take it more seriously. But we still didn't know anything.
It was clearly not going to work out between Caroline and I if she was working at Stone Barns. Because I was like, get me out of this place. Like, I hate this. So, no offense to Jack and Shannon, but what they were doing there was not really appealing to me at all,
Yeah.
So,
it should be acknowledged that the farm has done so much in the ensuing years, but at the beginning, it was really not sure what its purpose was, and really somewhat overshadowed by the Blue Hill gang. And in any case, we just wanted to get real and really grow some food.
So what was that like once you dove right in? What did it I guess, what was the vision and where did that fall short? The sort of overarching themes of our early period was that we were growing like crazy stuff. Like we were growing like these little tiny like wild cherry tomatoes, and we were growing bitter melon and raddichio, and we were growing, just like the craziest stuff. Because, at the time we thought, there are all these farms here already, like we need to be offering something different. And then we would go to the farmer's market and everyone would just want to buy lettuce and carrots and kale from us. So we're like, well, I guess we should probably do that. And then, you find out that like that's your core business after a while. And then we sort of like, had kids, figured out that we needed to earn more money. Bought a farm, added another farmer's market, added CSA, and then we really kind of got into this sort of like small scale, 7 acres for about 5 years, antique tractors, like the whole, like we're just starting out and we have like a small, like market farm thing. And it was after the hurricane in 2011 that we decided that we needed to like get bigger.
I think it was in 2010 that we first started thinking about adding winter also.
That's true. I think the first winter market opened in Amherst in like 2011 or something.
Right. And that's when we built the first high tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
Had you been experimenting with winter growing at all up until that point? Or were you like pretty traditional, close up the farm for the winter months?
I mean, we had always grown Tardivo raddichio because, I had sort of learned about it just like traveling in Veneto in December and just like buying it off of the market stand as a snack and being like, what the heck is this thing? It looks like Belgian endive and it's delicious. And And so I got some seeds, brought it back. But, we weren't, in the early days, we didn't have any greenhouses. So we weren't really, we didn't, we didn't really have any infrastructure at all. So we couldn't really grow storage crops. It was really only after that market opened that actually Michael Doctor of Food Bank Farm and now Winter Moon Roots was instrumental in founding, that people really started looking at, us included, but I can't claim that I was an innovator in this. But, it became more and more common for small farms to invest in high tunnels and root storage, facilities, et cetera, et cetera. But we were always sort of doing Cardivo just for us. And yeah, not much else,
We didn't have a lot of hands-on experience, and, we were starting it right when everyone else was experimenting with it, in our area at least. We did make a pilgrimage up to Four Season Farm and, checked out your greenhouses there or what was happening at that time. And went to some, I think it was like a NOFA New York conference on it. So we did research. We thought,
because at the time that was like, it was the biggest purchase that we had made of like a piece of farm equipment. Was our first big high tunnel. So we built that in 2011. We built a 200-foot long high tunnel and started really, doing winter greens production.
I think that, I would also credit the USDA high tunnel grant with,
I think it was the first year.
With encouraging us to build more. And then the expansion of market opportunities. And it should also be noted, one of the other reasons that we, started pushing harder into winter is because as we had a family and we had a staff and we were trying to retain staff, being able to offer winter employment to people that you like and want to work with again became a real motivator.
And how much, we'll probably get into more of the raddichio content a little bit later, but I'm just curious how much of that was central to growing year round or trying to offer those products year round.
Part of the story of raddichio is kind of funny because it tracks the story of our business. So in the beginning, we were really interested in growing a lot of the specialty stuff. Then we sort of got disillusioned because we were we weren't marketing to New York or Boston at that time. We were really just, with a small farm selling to a local market here. And we were finding that the kinds of things that we were most interested in sharing, they didn't have a huge market. So like we would bring zucchini blossoms and, other specialty stuff to the market. And there'd be a very small percentage of people who were like really excited about it. But that really hit like a cap very, very quickly. So, we got more into doing CSA and we were growing more of a general type of crop mix. It was only after 2013 that we stopped doing CSA and we started doing wholesale into New York City, Boston, Rhode Island, that the market for the specialty stuff that we were doing when we were really small started to really expand for us. So that
coincides with when we became certified organic, even though we'd always grown organically. Only when we were able to acquire an adjacent parcel that it merited certifying our small land base there, and then started increasing our wholesale focus. So that coincided with finding these urban markets that were more appreciative and allowed us to scale up the specialty items because they were even that much more rare to be locally grown specialty items that were certified organic. So I think that was sort of like the winning combo for us.
Well, and also just, as, we always have this image of ourselves as this underdog farm that, when we were coming up, there were a lot of other organic farms around here that were bigger than us. And we were always kind of trying to get our toe in whatever new opportunity was there using our particular skill set and expertise, which, is food and is like specialty produce. So, the opportunity to sell directly through distributors into urban markets where, they're selling to restaurants, they're selling to co-ops, they're selling to small, urban bodega type places. Suddenly the market for what we were really good at doing, expanded exponentially for us. And
it made us add back to the crop plan things that we had sort of done for our own personal benefit, but couldn't justify commercially. But like, fava beans and, every year we go back and forth with some of these things that we just love so much. Like okra got back onto the crop plan last year, but this year I think it's going to fall off again. But, a lot of these Italian things became more viable for us in this new market opportunity.
So
it was very exciting. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just curious. So what year then was that when you really made the big push and shift towards wholesale, I guess, produce, but then somewhat simultaneously you were bringing in value added? Or I'm just curious about sort of like that moment of that transition and then acquiring more land and, just taking that big jump into a whole nother way of marketing your farm.
Yeah, absolutely. The transition to wholesales happened in 2014. So since 2013, we haven't done any CSA. So that was the first really big change when we saw opportunity that we could add production, we could build infrastructure to support this wholesale business.
We were tied up with the land base too, because we had until 2014 been unable to acquire this adjacent piece. And because we were on this tiny, narrow, 200-foot wide strip surrounded by conventional neighbors, we just couldn't certify and we couldn't build infrastructure. So that land-based part is crucial here too.
Yeah, so we had this like checklist of things that we needed to do. And we just kind of, between 2014 and 2018, kind of checked them all off. We needed to build a year-round pack room. We got a big loan from FSA to build our pack room in 2016. And then that opened up the door to doing a lot more winter. We were doing winter roots. We were doing, at that point we had built another high tunnel. We were doing a lot of greens. We weren't, we had switched away from doing like a whole line of products to just doing arugula and salad mix for the winter, because, when we're doing wholesale, it just makes a lot more sense to just do one thing, especially with greens, which seem to have an unlimited market in the winter, even when you're neighbors with Danya. So, so that's still a very, very big part of our winter business. But, at the same time, we had started to do value added because we also, in addition, host an annual pepper festival. And we just wanted to have something to sell that we made ourselves.
So the first year that we made a test batch of sriracha for Chili Fest was 2013, and that was just 1 5-gallon bucket, and that sold very quickly and blew our minds. And so 2014, as we were expanding into wholesale, becoming certified organic, and sort of shifting the focus of the farm, also was a huge ramp up for this new product, this new enterprise. And we rented a shared kitchen space in Greenfield to make, I think we 10 times the amount that first year. So that was still like very much a side project. All throughout the period between
2014 and say 2019, 2018, 2019, the focus really was wholesale veg. And then we're sort of slowly kind of building up our value added as like a side project.
And now you have a commercial kitchen on your farm now too, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. As of 2019, we started working in our own building on the farm. So we put in 5 years scaling up the sriracha, adding the salsa, scaling that up. We did 5 years working in the shared kitchen space that was very challenging, but it allowed us to get it to a place where we were in, a region of Whole Foods and, at a fairly high volume. But we had maxed that out in terms of the number of days they were willing to rent to us, the amount of storage they had in the freezer and cooler for us. And we got to a point where one season we had peppers in the field that we couldn't harvest and process because we couldn't get additional days in there.
And one thing I'm really curious about this, fresh veg and value added, business model is how do you meet the demand for the products needed for the value added, at least on a small scale? And I only have experience from that perspective. It's always so hard to come up with enough product.
You mean growing?
Yeah, if you have a really thriving business to sell fresh veg, it's really hard to have enough to meet the demand for, the raw ingredients for the value added. So,
well, one thing that we determined when our value added enterprise was becoming more significant was that, we were doing, since 2016 or something, we've been doing about 50 acres of cropped veg, which is a lot of stuff. But, it was like 2 acres that we needed for salsa and sriracha. So, it was like an acre of peppers and half an acre of tomatoes and quarter acre of onions. Like it was so little compared to what we were doing, but it was a obviously increasingly economically important aspect of our business. And so when we were deciding to build our own processing facility on the farm, the calculus was, and we wrote, we spent 3 years writing proposals and getting financing and all this, putting all the pieces together for this, and grants. But the goal really was, okay, we're going to take this 2 acres of crops that we're devoting into processing. Because, at that point, we were only doing 2 days a week in September. It wasn't like a full-blown thing. It was still a side project because we could only rent, X amount of space. It's a busy time in the kitchen because other farms are coming in and whatever. So we saw the opportunity. If we had our own space, we could take this 2 acres and make it 10 acres. And if we were processing even, 4 acres of stuff, it would be double the amount that we were doing. And so we started, chipping away at that goal. And we're pretty close to 10 acres of stuff that we're processing. But it kind of puts this other 40 acres that we're growing in veg into perspective of like, damn, that's a lot of work growing 40 acres of veg. How much longer do we need to keep doing this?
Well, and this year we just crossed the threshold of the revenue from value-added products. Even if it's 10 acres out of 50 total that we're growing, it's now producing fully half and potentially more of our annual revenue.
Wow.
Because it's value-added, which of course also must be acknowledged represents a lot of additional
cost.
Expense.
Yeah.
Cost, time.
Do you mind, highlighting what the net is on the value added? Not, specific numbers, but just a percentage. I mean, is it profitable?
I mean, net in farming is a moving target.
Right.
But yes, we believe that it is as profitable and possibly more profitable. I mean, not like 10 times more profitable, but more profitable than the farming enterprise, certainly. Yeah. But there are so many complicating factors. The thing it's not like all of a sudden I have like a bunch of cash weighing me down, because we have all of these upfront costs. We have to buy all of our packaging materials for the entire year. We do screen printing on all of our glass jars and sriracha bottles. And so then we had to build a whole other building just to put the stuff in. So, the capital intensive nature of farming is significant in itself. And then it's another similarly capital intensive business that we've sort of superimposed on top of it. So we have a lot of debt that we've taken on. We're profitable, but I mean, the profit's going to pay back the debt, for now.
And is it something that you are, you prefer to focus on moving forward? I mean, do you've got the production aspect and then the kitchen aspect. I mean, do you have a preference now? Are you seeing yourself evolving one way or the other?
I mean, our business or me personally? Because
both,
our business,
I guess. Yeah. I mean, both. Just, personal as a farmer and then as a business.
I would say in terms of our personal time spent daily at the farm, Tim and I have spent a vast majority of our work hours focused on growing the value-added business the last several years. And that's largely because we have a really amazing staff of people who've worked with us for many years, who really can manage the day-to-day of the growing to a large extent, growing, harvesting, packing, selling. But yeah, and we have been over the past couple of years since we built the kitchen, changing the proportion of what we're doing tilted more toward the value added. And yeah, we've been sitting at our desks facing each other all week doing our 2021 analysis and planning for this coming season and the future, grappling with this very question. How much of this business should be products versus growing veg as we move forward?
Yeah, it's a hard question.
I mean, I have to admit that I am a little biased in this conversation because, I do spend pretty much all of my time at the farm. I have my own crew who's, they report every day to the kitchen and they don't work on the farm. We receive in our warehouse in the kitchen, truckloads of produce all throughout July up to December. And we're, taking it, processing it into a holding form of ingredients that we can then use to manufacture products. So, this is where I'm spending pretty much all of my time. And, if you look at the numbers, it looks like what we're doing is good. So, but we are kind of coming up on this point now where we're doing as much as we can kind of do in our current space. So we built it in 2019. 2019 was our first year. Now we've done 3 seasons in our own space, and we've been able to find buyers for basically as much as we can possibly produce in there. So we're kind of coming up to this point in our career where we're like, well, we could just keep going 100 miles an hour, growing the company, but that would really involve building a bigger facility. Where are we going to build it? Taking on more debt. And we're just kind of like getting into a point in our career where we just need to stop this insane growth trajectory that we've been on. And that feels weird. And honestly, it feels weird to us to have come to that determination because it's not something we've ever done. And it's scary.
Well, I also think it's interesting because it's you think about farming, the whole idea of growing and getting bigger and bigger has never really, at least in the small scale, sustainable farming world, has never been really a goal, right? Because it kind of goes...
Depending on who you talk to.
True. But, if you look at sort of the ecology and you look at sustainability, growing bigger and better, isn't necessarily better. So
I don't know. I mean, you tell me. We've put 70 acres of conventional farmland into certified organic. I mean,
right.
what's
And I'm
bad
not
about
talking,
the ecology of that?
Yeah, I'm not talking that scale. I'm talking, like if you're going into thousands of acres and, of production, which, at what point does it become either, unsustainable from an ecological standpoint and from a human standpoint, right? These are all these questions. At what point does it?
We look at it a little differently in our particular landscape here. As Tim described earlier, we have amazing land in the Pioneer Valley for growing vegetables. A huge proportion of it is allocated to commodities like potatoes. And we have
corn
taken,
and dairy.
Yeah, dairy corn, silage corn. We have taken as our personal mission, little 5-acre strip at a time, to get access to the land that we have been able to find and convert it to organic production, and also convert it to higher value, actual vegetables for humans to eat.
That require human beings to be on the land, doing work.
Right. So we've been really motivated to have this broader positive economic impact in our community, to provide food for people that they need and provide jobs for people that are good, and do it in an organic, sustainable manner. And
also offer stuff that is insanely high quality.
And
go ahead.
I just wanted to say the other part, which is since COVID, we also became a food hub, and we launched Sunderland Farm Collaborative, which is a home delivery business for our local area. And we, aggregate from 60 other farms in our area, and some across New England, but mostly really local. And I have seen from my new perspective as a regional buyer, essentially, that there's just so much demand for produce that isn't being met. And so we're grappling with this question of we are seeing that perhaps we're at a moment where maybe we want to grow a little bit less veg for wholesale, and focus on the value added part of the business a little bit more. And at the same time, I see, other organic farmers getting older, other vegetable growers, maybe thinking about scaling back, and seeing that there's unmet demand and land that should be reallocated to this kind of growing. And it's just confusing to see all of this need and this opportunity and not choose it.
Well, I mean, the other part of this, puzzle is that the barriers to entry into this industry are insanely high, and it's way worse now than when it was when we started. And when we started, it was already pretty challenging. And so, if we're scaling back, our peers are scaling back because we're all hitting the point of our career where we're just kind of burned out and don't want to do as much. We're not necessarily seeing, a new generation of go-getters that want to farm 20, 40, 70, 100 acres. And, maybe we'll see that, but we haven't seen it recently.
Yeah.
I guess I'm still that guy, maybe. I don't know. I'm confused about it.
Well, it is confusing. I mean, like you said, the risk of burnout, the demands on the individual are so high. How do you, this is a business that is not your normal type of business, right? It's got so many other complexities, and it really is a complicated question. And I think answer, right? Is there any easy answer to this question? I don't think so.
No, I mean, in terms of the burnout, I think, it depends on what else you have going on in your life. I feel like how burnt out you are, because when we had, we have 2 kids, 12 and 13. And when we were starting out, we were doing, a much smaller farm, but I was probably more burnt out than I am now. Because it was all on me. We were doing 7 acres. We had 3 employees, and I wasn't sleeping at night, and, I was a mess. So, doing 50 acres of produce, if you got a staff that's good, it can be less work. for a person. So I don't necessarily, because we've seen all these different scales of what we've done, I don't necessarily, buy into if you take on more, it's more work. Part of why we expanded our farm is actually to create an opportunity for us to work less, because the responsibilities of managing the farm are more equally shared across, many people now.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing I was saying before, we grew the farm very deliberately in order to provide year-round career type positions for our most valued staff. Because it's continuity is everything, and the burden falls more on us if we have turnover every year.
Yeah. So you have about 20 people employed year round, and how long have they been there? What is the turnover, if any?
Oh, we still have turnover, but we have our production manager, Max, who's coming back for his 8th or 9th season.
I think it'll be 9.
9 years. So yeah, he joined the farm in 2014, right as we made that transition into wholesale, and he's grown the farm with us. And then we have our main sales and marketing person, Lily, who has been with us since 2016. And, we have had a strong pipeline of farmers who have stayed, 3-4 years. And, they're turning over also. I mean, we had a pretty hellacious year last year with the weather. And, when we get a year like that, historically, we've had some of our longer term people change careers, which is understandable. No judgment. But yeah, I mean, people tend to stick around longer if you provide consistent employment and, competitive pay.
Hey, podcast listeners, we're going to pause for a moment to hear from one of our show sponsors. Today's episode of the Winter Growers podcast is brought to you by Tunnel Vision Hoops. Tunnel Vision Hoops designs and manufactures do-it-yourself high tunnels, hoop houses, and greenhouses. With an extensive array of products to help large and small growers become more productive, they have 11 different tunnel widths to fit any application and designs to stand up to weather conditions from coast to coast. Tunnel Vision is also a national distributor of parts and accessories needed to build, maintain, or upgrade an existing tunnel or hoop house. Check out their Tunnel Vision Hoops YouTube channel for instructional how-to videos to help build a great high tunnel or hoop house. Here at Four Season Farm, we have 2 movable high tunnels made by Tunnel Vision Hoops, and they are definitely my favorites. To learn more, visit their website at tunnelvisionhoops.com. Today's show is also brought to you by Growing for Market magazine. Which crops will pay back your investment in a hoop house or greenhouse? How does managing a greenhouse through the winter differ from summer growing? And which crops can just be overwintered in the field? Learn all that and more by subscribing to Growing for Market magazine. The writers are farmers, not journalists. They won't tell you how to grow, they'll tell you how they grow, so you can decide what works for your farm. Growing for Market is celebrating 30 years of helping local food and flower growers succeed with articles written by experienced farmers from around North America. Since 1992, Growing for Market is by farmers, for farmers. Plus, subscriptions start at only $30 per year. Whether you do farmers markets, local wholesaling, a CSA, or dream of starting a farm, check them out today at growingformarket.com. Request a free sample print or digital copy from their website, and podcast listeners can get a new subscriber discount of 25% off with the code WINTER when subscribing at growingformarket.com. I think Growing for Market magazine is an excellent and affordable resource for any grower. Now, back to the show. So I know we haven't really talked too many technical details so far.
Yeah.
But I would love, real quick, I'd love to hear a little bit about your raddichio production, just because it is sort of a, fall, winter type of crop. And you you are both pros at it. So could you just give me a little rundown of what I know it's evolved over the years, but what it typically looks like or
Sure.
does look like?
Love to.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Well,
So, I mean,
Tim majored in raddichio and I did not.
Okay. Well, then, but you still know
I'll just give a little background because, I did travel. Caroline and I both went to Veneto in the winter of 2004 to meet raddichio farmers for this project I was working on at Hampshire College. So we went there in December. We went to the Sagra del Raddichio in Treviso, and we were able to meet the person that at the time ran the consortio that sort of is in charge of this denomination of origin for Treviso Raddichio and Castelfranco that have the DOP. And so I spent a year researching, what this means, etc. But, importantly, I did travel to Italy twice and met a lot of the people who are growing it and learned a lot about how to grow it. So fast forward to now, we're doing about 2 acres of raddichio, and maybe a quarter of that is for forcing. But I'll just go through a bunch of the sort of important details about growing raddichio. First of all, the seed, you want to get the best quality seed that you can get. Starting just a few years ago, the really good commercial seed from Italy started to become more readily available to U.S. growers. Osborne Seed was bringing it in. Another friend of mine, Chris Field from Campo Rosso Farm, was sourcing directly from a seed company in Italy. And then since then, there's been 2 or 3 other seed companies start in Veneto. There's Levantia, and there's also Smarties.bio, which is marketing through Uprising, this special Italian line. So, and you can get the TNT seeds and the Levantia varieties from Osborne Seeds. So the seed is available. So that's step one.
There's no more putting it in your pockets and trying to fly back from Italy with it, right?
I mean, you could certainly do that, but the stuff that you're going to buy on the seed rack is not going to be a good seed necessarily. Right. It's going to be sort of home garden grade.
But you still arrange special orders with Osborne. You're not just buying out of the catalog at this point.
You can certainly do that if you contact them directly, but their catalog is pretty great in terms of the types of varieties that they offer. A lot of them, it's like they're kind of like the West Coast version of Johnny, so they do a lot of trialing in Washington and Oregon, and the varieties that they offer work well there. So, there might be ones in the catalogs of these other companies that work better for the Northeast. So that's kind of why I source sort of a special order through Osborne. But basically we have a big, this 2 acres that I'm talking about, it's pretty much all grown in the fall. It has, one little narrow window that we can get it in so that it will be, ready on time. And you plant, basically what we do is we plant, 10 or 12 different varieties all in the same planting, and then they sort of ripen over time, starting in late September, mid-October is the peak into November. Our growing season here is a lot shorter than in Italy. They're still pulling stuff out of the field now over there, like the pink, the Rosalba, Castelfranco. You can still be harvesting those outside in Italy or even in Pacific Northwest. So, growing it here in the Northeast is very challenging. So
can you use any protected culture to mitigate that, or does that have its own challenges?
I mean, you certainly could, and we have. I can get into that. So we're trying to do all of our seeding after summer solstice. So between the last week of June to the first week of July. So we have 2 plantings. They're usually about 2 weeks apart. And we're trying to get that all in on the hottest day of the year. It's like without fail. planting day, we have 400 trays of radicchio that we need to plant, and it's like 99 degrees out. So, that part can be kind of challenging if you're trying to grow a lot of radicchio. It's all got to be planted on this at the same time. It's not a succession crop necessarily. It's a big block. And, for our purposes as a larger farm, makes a lot of sense. It's like, okay, that's a 2-acre field that, this is a crop family that, isn't a brassica, and it's not a nightshade. So it's like, it's awesome. You can put it in the rotation, and, you get it in, you water it, you weed it, and it just kind of like sits there. And then you get, these repeated harvests over a 6 to 8 week period.
Are any of them direct sown, or are these all transplants?
No, we transplant everything.
Okay.
We actually got this carousel transplanter from Italy in order to make it faster because we have this really tight window. If it's too hot, if it's 99 degrees, we just aren't going to plant that day. So the window becomes even smaller. So with the carousel planter, we can plant about an acre of 3-row, 1-foot spacing plants in a day. So it makes it pretty great.
Yeah.
So we bought the thing to use it 2 days a year.
Well, we use it for all of our brassicas too.
I know. So that really was the driver.
So we grow Chioggia, which is the round one. We grow Treviso, early Treviso, which is the sort of football-shaped, romaine-shaped one. And there's also a bunch of varieties that are less common. There's the Verona, which is sort of a mixture of the two. So it's like a little bit rounded, but it's a little bit pointy. That one's amazing.
Like a mini Nerf football.
They store really well. They're beautiful, highly pigmented, like just stunningly
so
great, and they're easy to grow. That one's really good. And then we get into, there's also the Belfiore, Adige types, the Lucia types that are sort of a less dense head, but extremely, this creamy color with the flecks, and it's mild tasting. It's really delicious. So we grow a lot of that too. A couple of varieties. There's the Belfiore from Johnny's, and then the Adige Medio. So those are kind of like the ones that you harvest out of the field fresh and you can sell. So that's 3/4 of what we're doing for raddichio. And our market for that, Caroline, I don't know if you want to speak to this, New York City.
Yeah.
All those New Yorkers.
Entirely. Yeah. So we're selling a lot of raddichio these days to Baldor, the specialty produce distributor for restaurants in New York. We also sell a good amount through Myers Produce. But having those two buyers has enabled us to really expand our raddichio production.
Yeah, and we have our retail online platform, Sunderland Farm Collaborative, and we sell, we have customers locally who love raddichio and who really appreciate that we grow it, but it's like 2% of our crop, and the rest goes to New York. So when we're talking about forcing, these are the varieties, number one, that are historically forced in Italy. So they're planted at the same time. And then we go out, starting just before Thanksgiving through, you don't want them to get below, say, 20 degrees Fahrenheit in the field, or else they'll start to get really damaged. And if you bring them in damaged, then they're going to, have more problems during the forcing process. So it's important to bring them in and kind of get them set up to force pretty quickly. So, this poses a challenge because we've tried different ways to extend that season. We'll bring them in, we'll put them in the cooler, and then they kind of start looking crappy in the cooler. So this year we sort of did a low tunnel situation where we covered with plastic the beds in the field. We remade them before Thanksgiving, and then we put the plastic on when it was going to be really cold. And then, obviously we got the mildest December we ever had, so we didn't really need to do that necessarily. Because by the time we needed to get them out before the holiday break, and they probably would have been just fine with remake. But it can get single digits in November where we are. So, we wanted to do that as a precaution. So that's been a pretty good improvement to season extension for raddichio. The other thing that we've tried is to grow them outside and then dig them up in late November, early December, and transplant them dense into a high tunnel. And that worked for the pink one. And if you had unlimited high tunnel space, you could plant pink raddichio and Castel Franco directly into a greenhouse. You could take the plastic off and then just put it on,
or have a movable.
You don't want to, or you could have a movable. Exactly. So yeah, there's definitely stuff that you could do. Our high tunnel space is just too valuable for growing greens. So we haven't really, raddichio is still just, it's not going to be your bread and butter, no matter what farm you are. So it's a niche market.
There's also a lot more labor, and we haven't even talked about the actual forcing.
Right. So our current setup for forcing is that we put a heated slab in one of our propagation greenhouses so that we can set up pools of water that are heated to 45 degrees on the floor of the tunnel. And we have tarp over the greenhouse to keep the light out and a bunch of fans going to make the air circulate. So you just basically take the whole plant, root and all, out of the field or out of the cooler, put it in a black crate, and just stick the crate in 3 inches of water and wait for 2 to 3 weeks.
Is that, so when you talk about a heated concrete slab, what are you using as a frame to keep the water in? What does that look like?
It's just like a 2x4s with plastic sheeting.
Okay. So like a little mini pool.
It's like a little, you could use a kiddie pool.
Yeah.
When we were doing it on greenhouse benches, we were using the concrete tubs that you can get at Home Depot. They're like a shallow black poly tub that works. It's just not running water. So what we had wanted to do is to, make like a drainage situation so that you can run the water all the time from a well, and then have it drain out through like an underground drainage system. Because it's, if it's 0 degrees, you can't really get rid of the water without making like a huge ice situation. I mean, none of this is like a good idea. It's been a particular passion project for a lot of years.
Yeah. No, I mean, the only thing we've done here for Season Farm is Belgian endive, and that was so much labor. And that was just one crop.
I mean, I will say though that doing forced raddichio is a leafy vegetable that, it does come into season in December, January, February.
Yeah.
And it's a great complement to the greens that we're growing in the ground, in the tunnel. And pound for pound, we're able to produce hundreds of pounds of this forced raddichio.
The other nice innovation of the last couple of years is a product we call chicory mix. And so, you're selling these forced heads as heads, but often, you have to pluck off imperfect leaves, or you have heads that end up too small once you've cleaned off all the rotting leaf material. That's just part of the process for forcing. And so we have a mix, like a cut salad green product called chicory mix. That's just gorgeous because it's the Tardivo, the Castel Franco, which is the variegated creamy pink flecked one, and the Rosalba with the pink leaves. And so that's another nice product that kind of utilizes subpar parts.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I like that.
So yeah, I mean, say we're putting out, say 10,000 plants of raddichio for forcing, and we're doing, 100 pounds, 200 pounds a week for 2 months in the winter. I mean, it's not a bad enterprise, and it's keeping our production crew busy in the winter. I'm not sure that they wouldn't have anything better to do, but it is food. We're making cool looking food, and I feel like that's the important thing.
Yeah. No, they're roses of winter, right? They're beautiful.
But I mean, compare that with our value. I mean, I literally like every single day we're in the kitchen, I'm producing enough value for like the entire crop of raddichio, like every day.
Yeah.
So, the veg is now the side project, and our salsa, for example, is like our main salsa, and sriracha is like what we do. And that can maybe be a segue into just this other way of looking at winter marketing, and sort of how we've used sort of different ways of looking at our growing and our market position and wholesale veg versus value added, to try to figure out like how to take advantage of what we have in the best way that can be, sales in the off season. But that really has been the driving force in developing the value added business, is saying like, okay, well, storage roots, everybody does it. How sexy really is a purple daikon at the end of the day? I don't necessarily need to be putting all my effort into like growing, storage roots. I don't know. You tell me. Is that sexy? It was sexy like in 2012, but I don't know if it's sexy now.
Well, it's also it's a lot of work, right? I mean, for a customer to know what to do with it. If you've done something to it already, right, that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm not going to be the one going out and buying like a 200-pound one-time CSA share of roots, like from my local farm. Like that's not how I eat food. So, I'm less interested in that.
Between, say, a day in the washroom processing 1,000 or 2,000 pounds of carrots versus, and what you get paid for that effort versus the amount of raddichio we can do. So roots in the winter as a sales opportunity still has something to say for it relative to the fussier raddichio.
Yeah. And I mean, like salad greens and tunnels, like that's always going to be a good idea. I'm not trying to knock it, but it is challenging. You have the challenges of growing produce off season. So you're always going to have the best market potential to sell your stuff if you can have it in a time of year that's kind of like excruciating in some way for the grower. It's like, it's harder to grow, when it's not the easy time of the year to grow it. So I feel like winter growing is kind of like, it is kind of off season. And as such, it is sort of harder on the farmer. I mean, I remember when we used to do winter farmers markets, it was reliably, no matter how much good stuff we had, it was reliably half of what we could make on a similar Saturday during the growing season, with the extra work of having to carry all the tables and all the heavy crates into a gymnasium and then back out again.
And worrying about it freezing in the box of the truck and all that stuff.
All that fun stuff. It's off season. It's just like not going to ever be as good. So, with value added, it's similar sort of economic forces are happening in the summertime. So if you're a tomato grower, for example, if you can get tomatoes in June out of a heated tunnel, like you're golden. It's off season. You can sell them. In late August, you can grow 1 million tomatoes, but try to get more than 75 cents a pound for those tomatoes because everybody has tomatoes. So what our value added business has allowed us to do is say, you know what? Screw the market. I'm just going to grow the tomatoes when it's easy. And we're going to pick 10,000 pounds a week. And we're just going to hold on to them until the winter. And then we're going to sell them.
In a jar.
So, in a jar.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's brilliant.
And with peppers, like the math is even better. So if you can grow peppers, I would suggest doing that.
And in that, because you can process them in various products, dry them, and you have all of those to sell in the winter.
I mean, it does take some upfront cost, and you have to have a crew ready to work on it in season. You have to have a crew to pick them. You have to have the infrastructure, the storage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Right. We built a big dehydrator last year, and we're already maxed out. It is full of peppers from September 1 until there aren't any more peppers. And
wow,
it can hold 12 bakery speed racks at a time. It's pretty awesome.
And you're growing how many acres of peppers?
This year we had 7 acres of peppers.
7 acres. Wow.
And a lot of, 3/4 of those are sold fresh.
Yeah.
So it's not even, because we sort of became known as the pepper farm. And so, there aren't a ton of other farms doing a lot of peppers. So that kind of became our niche, even in the fresh produce part of the business. So we do a lot of Jimmy Nardello peppers and poblanos and jalapenos and, the kinds that they're a little bit specialty. We don't grow bell peppers, for example. None of those 7 acres of peppers are bell peppers. They're all specialty peppers. And, it's a great crop. But it's similar to tomatoes in that when you have this peak season moment, it's hard to sell enough, to your existing customers.
Well, at the same time, we've become a big customer for ourselves. And then we're always in this tension in pepper season because we have all of these customers coming to us for peppers, and we actually have to turn down a lot of fresh pepper orders because we're just trying to make certain that we meet our target so that we have sriracha come next June, that we're working a year out at all times when we're trying to manage what we're harvesting and what we're processing.
Oh, I have so many questions still. I love talking to you about all this.
Great. You should talk. I feel like I've been talking too much. It's your turn.
No, I have endless questions, and I feel like we're going to need to do a round 2 because I think we're at our lightning round question time frame. So, but you'd be up for a round 2 at some point, right? I hope.
Sure. Call me back in a year, see if I'm still doing any of this.
Okay. So, first question is favorite crop to grow, cook, or eat? And maybe you've answered this already.
Do you want to take that, Caroline?
I'm fraught. How fast of a lightning answer do you need?
You can go whatever you want.
Come on. Your favorite crop is eggplant. Let's face it.
We do have several eggplant dishes that I will be depressed for a year if we don't cook and eat during eggplant season.
What are they?
They all require a complementary herb. And so my brain was stuck on the herbs, but it's true. So
what are your dishes?
Well, there's the grilled Thai green, long, skinny eggplants, the Thai cold pad woon sen, is that the right one? So just a charcoal, smoky, soft green eggplant. It's really
dressed
good.
With Thai herbs and chilies and fish sauce. It's a salad.
Yum.
That's one of our summertime staples.
We always do the purple, long, skinny Asian eggplant with Thai basil and chili in a soy dressing with fried cubes of tofu also generally. There's pasta alla norma, of course, so Italian cubed or sliced eggplant with a tomato basil sauce with pasta.
And mozzarella.
And cubes of fresh mozzarella when you serve it. Baba ganoush. There's just no limit to the amount of baba ganoush I could happily eat.
Yeah, eggplant is really, in the summertime, you're so beat and you don't want to cook, but there's eggplant. So yes, drag me to the stove and heat up the oil because we're going to eat some eggplant, you know?
Oh my God, falafel with cubes of eggplant deep fried. Yes.
I think it
If
must
it
be.
weren't for eggplant, we would really never cook in the summer.
Well, tomatoes, which doesn't count as cooking, but yeah.
It must be close to lunchtime here. Tim, do you have any crops to add to that?
I mean, you know, we share food, Caroline and I. But like, you know, my favorite green to eat is broccoli rabe. And so we probably grow like half an acre of broccoli rabe just so I can pick a few bunches. I mean, we do sell it, but like, you know, I just love broccoli rabe with anchovy pasta. It's so good.
Oh, what is the name of that Italian larger broccoli rabe that I saw on your Instagram? That looked fascinating.
They call it cima di rapa.
Yeah.
So it just means like the turnip top. But it's a regional variety from Puglia. And if you go to Puglia in the winter, you'll see this it looks like a mutantly large version of broccoli rabe. And you'll see it everywhere. I mean, and it's like the sort of the national dish of that region. It's a real specialty. They put it in everything. You know, there's the orecchiette pasta is very traditional. It's got a really strong flavor. So it is not for the timid. And they'll put it in panzerotti, which is like a little bit of pizza dough then they make a pocket like an empanada and they deep fry that.
And you're growing that on your farm?
That variety is like that's really just like a forage after everything else is dead on the farm kind of crop.
Got it.
What we've learned about that one is that it really is more frost hardy. And so when everything's done, you can still go get a meal's worth.
Yeah.
If you are up
we don't grow a ton of it because it's challenging to pick and nobody knows what it is. So
yeah, no, I've noticed that with Happy Rich too, even though that's not as sexy as this Italian variety. It is incredibly cold hardy. So yeah.
Oh, we grow so much of that stuff.
Yeah.
Broccolini. Oh my gosh. That's been a total revelation over the last 4 years or so.
Yeah.
Huge crop for us.
Okay. Next question. What gets you up in the morning?
The cat clawing at you.
Yeah, we have cats. They tend to get us up in the morning.
Does that change from young children to cats?
Oh, the children also need to be brought to school by somebody, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't know. I've never been a morning person, to tell you the truth. But often I'm at work at 6 a.m. trying to heat up sriracha and assemble machinery. You know, it's not less sexy, but
yeah, I mean, this is a more literal response, but like there is live sales and live, direction to give. Like there's no time I could wake up early enough that, I'm not already feeling behind. Making sure that the harvest team has all the information they need and that the sales that are happening on the Sunderland Farm Collaborative storefront are, set up properly. The business has so many parts always going and people doing their thing that I'm responsible for, that I'm always thinking about who needs me to be anticipating the next thing.
Yeah. What is the hardest part of farming?
When we interview candidates for a job on the farm, I always tell them that the hardest thing is cumulative fatigue of, working 7 to 5 or later for months on end when it's hot out in the summer. And, coupled with that, I think is, doing it now 15 plus years, this existential crisis every summer of like literally every time it's nice out, I have to be working. Every hour that it's nice out. Like I'm either working or like passing out from exhaustion. And it's, you do have some serious FOMO because like I have free time. So I took a week off this week. It's 0 degrees outside. And like, what do I like to do in my free time? I like to spend time outside. So it's like, I mean, I'm going to go skiing tomorrow, so that's a good thing. But, not having time off in the summer, it sucks.
I'm going to give a brief answer to this one, which is just the real truth that no matter how good you are at it, you can still fail, or you can still, have things not succeed. It's a nicer way to put that.
Giving up control.
Yeah, it's just not. Yeah, there's things that are outside of your control, and your results are not necessarily reflection of your ability and your effort.
Kind of like parenting too sometimes, right?
That is also true.
What's your favorite way to relax or self-care activity, or how do you take care of your body, heart, mind as a farmer?
I mean, for me, badly.
My single gift to myself is a shower. It's like not saying a lot, but it's what counts as private time.
I don't know, the things that I find fill me up, is getting to spend time with friends and getting to cook for other people and getting to, have a few drinks and just kind of shut off the farm for a while. Those are the kind of things, and they've been pretty challenging for the last couple of years with COVID, just trying to gather normally with people and have meals. It's been hard not having it.
Yeah, definitely.
As much or as easy.
What is your favorite smell and your least favorite smell on the farm?
Cutting fennel.
Fennel. Mm-hmm. Yeah, celery, herbs. Those are all my favorite smells. And we get to handle a lot of herbs, which is nice. It's a pretty major thing that we sell fresh. And we just started this year processing dried herbs. So it's it's really great when we get the pallet of fresh cut rosemary and you have to wash it all and put it on the trays, and it makes the whole room smell amazing.
Aromatherapy.
Least favorite smell is diesel, easy. There's no worse smell. I don't care if it's rotting, it's a natural smell, but diesel is disgusting.
So I have two least favorite. One is, when you're working on the farm and harvesting onions or cutting and bunching fresh onions, and your pants reek of onions, and you wash them 5 times and you can't get the onion smell out, which is,
we've all been there.
For us is when you've been bottling sriracha and your hair, your arm hair, your clothes, everything, the laundry basket, all reeks of sriracha.
How do you turn off farming, or can you? Do you?
It's a challenge. I mean, even when we're on vacation with our family, most of the time there's still employees reporting to work. So it's, I think as a business owner, it's just part of it. It's very hard to turn it off. How do we turn it off, though? I sleep. I don't know.
You might dream it.
I mean, I would say for us, it's been spending time in cities, really being physically removed from our lives and our work. And, as a city person, just feeling in touch with that other part of me is really, really replenishing and really feels necessary.
Yeah. What do you love besides farming? Or what would you be doing if you weren't farming?
I mean, I feel like I'm already sort of doing the best of both worlds, because I am farming and I'm also not necessarily farming on a daily basis. So I am kind of doing the thing that I would be doing if I wasn't farming, in the summertime, food preservation has always been a very important sort of traditional thing that I set aside time to do, even if I'm so exhausted. I've canned my own tomatoes every year for 20 years. I never bought a canned tomato. And I've made a business doing that. Like that's rivaling the farm business, and it's pretty cool to think about it that way.
But even after a day spent bottling tomato sauce, you come home and spend a weekend canning tomatoes in regular jars.
It's true. It's that important to me.
I think for me, I really enjoy like bringing people together to make bigger things happen. And I've done that a little bit recently with forming Sunderland Farm Collaborative and, bringing all these other farms together to develop a new market for their stuff. And I'm just inclined to sort of just be interested to know what people's struggles are and to try to connect the dots and see what can be possible. So that's, if I had to stop farming, I would probably find a way to try to be of use in that way.
An inspiring farmer or land steward you'd want to have as a dinner guest, either living or deceased?
I'm going to pass on this one.
Well, we've made a practice of befriending farmers that we admire, that we have met through Instagram. And we connected to the folks at Local Roots Farm who founded Chicory Week in Washington State, and made a pilgrimage out there to participate in the Sagra, and stayed with them, and
had a number of very memorable, lovely meals together that we cooked.
This is Siri and Brian, correct?
Jason,
yes.
Yeah.
Or Jason, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like, it's not even in the realm of fantasy. We hosted Calixta from Flourish Produce from England just a couple weeks ago. So this is a real amazing thing that has happened over the last several years, that like you can learn about who people are and what they do, and then like connect in real life and have a lot to share. So.
Yeah, no, that is definitely an important thing for us. And the network is real, and it's been, it's been awesome. I'm getting a little bit like sick of social media, to be honest, but like there was a time where it was extremely exciting to be, for the first time, able to access like, who's doing what, where. I found that to be like extremely thrilling in the early days, but I'm like ready to shut it all off now.
Well, right. And I'm more focused on the like real life relationships that have been able to form by launching from that platform.
Yeah. What's one piece of advice you wish you had starting out, or something you wish you had done differently?
I am going to acknowledge that I am a real workaholic, and have really put the farm and the business first for a lot of this time. And
so your advice to other people is to do that if you want to succeed, right?
I don't know. It's one of those things. I can't imagine having done it any other way, and I can't imagine how one could. However, I'm parenting teenagers now, and they are making it very clear that they want and need a lot more of my time and energy. And, I'm wishing I had maybe had a little bit more time for that even before now.
Yeah, I can relate. What is your learning edge, and where do you feel like your abilities or understanding as a farmer could grow?
Just following up on that. We are acknowledging that we're doing a heck of a lot, and we need to figure out ways to make some cuts and to do less, and to try to free up a little bit more time for ourselves. And, that is, like I said, I already mentioned this, but it's really not something we've ever done. And we're kind of at this moment now where it feels challenging and it feels scary, and we know we need to do it. And so that's going to be sort of the next chapter, maybe challenge, maybe, if we can, if we can avoid backsliding into further ambition.
I would say the area where I'm always working to learn and do better is in being an effective leader, managing our crew, supporting, fostering, nurturing, mentoring. I have really high hopes and standards for how I want to be. And, we have built a really strong community and culture at our farm. But I always see, especially when I'm stressed out, because there's a lot to manage, I always see how I could and should be doing more.
And how will you grow old farming?
I don't know. I don't know that when we started this, we had any intention of being old and farming or being old at all. Like, I don't know. Like, it's not that we haven't given any thought, recently, but damn, like building a new farm from scratch. Like, I feel like it's not the thing that you think about. Like, we're just, I've always said what success looks like in farming is if you get to farm again next year. And, that has really been the focus, not what happens 20 years from now. And I think that we've had a lot of progress in thinking on the 5 to 10 year scale, but I don't know, our thinking of the 5 to 10 year scale doesn't necessarily involve us still being in charge around here. So that's kind of all I'm going to say on that.
I would say that I, don't have a clear vision of what that looks like. But I would be completely surprised if at any stage in our life that we didn't have access to our own herbs, garlic, tomatoes, like if we don't own a farm, we're going to grow some of these things that are like the only consistent source of joy.
Wait, does that mean I have to do it?
I just challenge you to not.
I need a freaking sabbatical. I don't know. I can't, give me a year off and then ask me what I want to do.
It's okay. There's no right answers here, We'll follow up on round 2, see where you're at in round 2.
Sounds good.
Well, thank you both. I know that these lightning round questions certainly aren't for the faint of heart, are they?
Yeah, you got some whoppers.
I know it's great because I love how some people are like, okay, I'm all in. I'm gonna really answer these, with all my heart, and then other people are like, yeah, I'm just gonna skim the surface of these, So you guys really dug into them, and I appreciate that. So thank you. And I thank you for taking the time to talk to me about all the things about your business and your farming journey and how, winter growing has been a part of that and how your farm business just keeps evolving and changing. And it's been great to hear about that. So thank you for being here.
I always love talking about our farm, So thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Well, good. Well, thanks again.
Oh, thank you.
Today's show was produced by me, Clara Coleman, with support from No Till Growers. Special thank you to Willie Breeding for the theme music. Thank you to the patrons at patreon.com/no-till growers for helping to make this show possible.